Welcome to a hands-on and first impressions of a multi-folding smartphone. This is the Samsung Galaxy Z Trifold. And it might sound crazy, like there's already so many comments that I've seen about how this looks ridiculous and pointless and looks like a gimmick and all that. But now that I've used this phone, this is a device that's actually starting to make foldables make sense to me. Hear me out. So this is the shape of most other foldables we've seen. It looks, like a single phone when it's closed, and then you open it up to a larger, maybe 8-inch square, which is super cool. But this is the Trifold. It opens not once, but twice to give you a massive 10-inch tablet, basically, that can fit in your pocket. And the difference between an 8-inch screen and a 10-inch screen might not sound like much, hold your jokes, but it's the shape of that screen, the rectangular aspect ratio, that's what's making all the difference here. Now, this is technically not the first Trifold smartphone. This is the Huawei Mate XT that I made a video about back in 2024. This one, though, folded like a Z. So what you have here is this super large display that's folded over the outside. So you could use either a single pane or a dual pane, or all the way open as this Trifold with a huge screen. And it's always on the outside exposed to the elements. So this Samsung Trifold is a little different. It folds a little more like the letter U. So there's a cover display on the outside, or you can flip it over and fully unfold everything to reveal a second interior display, which is the one that folds twice. So while you use that, the cover display is just kind of sitting unused on the back. So this is really interesting. Clearly worse in some ways, but clearly better in some other ways. I have a lot of thoughts, but let's just get the specs out of the way first. So it's a Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy inside, so it's technically not the absolute latest and greatest 8 Elite Gen 5, but it seems like they've been working on this phone for long enough that this is the most recent flagship chip they could use, and it's obviously only a year old, so still a really great chip. 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. Then there's the triple cameras on the back. They're essentially the same ones as the Z Fold 7, so a flagship grade 200 megapixel primary camera, but then some pretty mid other cameras, a 10 megapixel 3x zoom and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. The cover display up front is also essentially the same as the Z Fold 7, 6.5 inches, 21 by 9, 120 hertz, and 2600 nits. The biggest difference, of course, is how much phone you're holding when you use it in single screen mode, because you can see all of that metal and those hinges. This phone is a heftier 12.9 millimeters thick. And it's also over 300 grams, so it feels like it's about 50% more phone you're holding than the regular Fold. Now, looks crazy on camera and looks crazy on paper. Those are big numbers. But holding this phone and using it, it's not sleek by any means, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't feel that ridiculous. For some perspective, this is actually thinner than the Z Fold 1, and the Z Fold 2, and the Z Fold 3, and the Z Fold 4, and the Z Fold 5. Something to think about. Either way, it does mean, while using this phone closed, it is a little bit clunky. The bezels are pretty thin and all, but this is obviously not why you're getting this phone. You're getting this phone because you can unfold everything, and you end up with this massive tablet-sized 10-inch display. So now when it's open, this tablet is 3.9 millimeters thin at its thinnest point, which is over here on the left, and 4.2 millimeters at its thickest point. So it feels really thin and easy to hold, and suddenly 309 grams is not so heavy after all. And I think context, again, helps so much with this. Most 10-inch tablets are around 500 grams, so they're heavier than this. But also, most roughly 10-inch tablets, including Samsung's own, have 8,000 milliamp hour batteries. Not this one. This battery has to be squashed into this super ridiculously thin form factor, and it's also split into 3 separate columns. So this one totals 5,600 milliamp hours, which technically, yes, is the largest ever in any Samsung folding phone, but it's also definitely on the small side for something with a 10-inch tablet-sized screen, if that makes sense. I feel like I've hammered this home so many times this year, but silicon carbon battery? Maybe?